My name is Samantha D'Souza, and today I will be talking about the importance of talking about mental health. So I'm going to start with my story because I feel like when I tell my story it's a little more personal and you'll understand this presentation much better. So I was always a really happy girl and I never really had that many issues or anything like that. I've always dealt with anxiety, but it wasn't anything I couldn't handle. And then in December, between December and like the beginning of January, I started to become very depressed and my anxiety rose really high and I became very angry, and this lasted for about 3 or 4 months, and it was just because a lot of things that had happened previously in the beginning of this school year. And so when I was in this depressive state, I didn't really talk to my family a lot, I didn't talk to my friends. People would ask me what was wrong, and I would just say, oh, like I'm tired, nothing's wrong, it's fine, but I was actually very angry inside and I was very sad. And when I was at school, it was fine, which is not very likely. A lot of people have problems in school, but when I was in school, it was actually fine for me. I felt like it was my escape. I wasn't in my head all the time. I had something to distract me. But as soon as I would get home, I would feel like I was alone and I would get into my own head and I would just overthink everything, and that was where the problem began. So 20% of youth ages 13 to 18 live with a mental illness. So that's kind of, it's not like a big amount, but that's more than I think most people would want. As many people know, suicide is the third leading cause of death in youth 10 to 24, and 90% of those who do commit suicide had an underlying mental illness. And 43.7 million Americans actually live with a mental illness. So the stigma, a lot of people are afraid to talk about their mental illness or somebody else's mental illness because of the stigma that has been created in society. And the stigma is basically that once you talk about your mental illness, it shows a form of weakness. And so once you open yourself to showing your weaknesses or showing someone else's weaknesses, it gives other people the power over your mind or someone else's mind. And it kind of gives other people the power to control what goes on in your head and the emotions that you go through that day. Another thing is that mental illness is not like a broken bone that can be fixed with a cast or fixed with medicine, and it's not something that people easily grasp or understand. So when people come to their friend or family with their mental illness, or when people themselves are diagnosed with mental illnesses, they get scared because they can't understand it. So it's not like there's no set in stone cure for what's going on. They just have to learn how to cope with it. How talking helps. I'm just going to talk about this from my perspective and how talking has helped me. So I personally went through therapy because I wasn't talking to my parents, so they put me in therapy, and talking to my therapist actually helped a lot because I felt like I had an outlet. And then after I was in therapy for a little bit, I actually opened up to my parents more, and it helped me to cope a lot with what I was going through, and it helped me to understand that I was not alone and that many people think the way that I do, and that everything that's going on in my head I can change with the way I think and the way that I approach situations and all of that. So talking can help you a lot, and if you don't enjoy talking, because I know many people in my family who live with mental illnesses and don't like to talk about it, I enjoy writing as well, so maybe journaling could help you or help somebody you know. And I like to do my makeup sometimes if I'm very stressed out, so that can help, or just drawing or finding anything that you really like to do can also help if you don't like to talk. What you can do, so I'm going to tell a story about another family member who actually recently committed suicide in my family, and what I think kind of escalated the situation more was the fact that nobody really talked about their mental illness that they had. So I don't know if them talking about it would have helped the situation in any way or prevented the situation, because I don't know what was going on in their head at the time, but I do think that it would have helped them a lot better if the people in their family had been there for them and been accepting of them and just known and it had been an open conversation in the family. So if you know somebody who has a mental illness or you live with someone who has a mental illness, just come to them with open arms, just try to be there for them and let them know that they're not being judged when they're around you and that they can tell you things in confidence and you won't go around telling their business to everyone, and unless they're going to harm themselves or in any way, obviously then you should tell somebody, but just let them know that you're there and that you accept them no matter what the consequences are. And even if they don't want to talk and they just want to sit in silence, let them know that you will sit there with them just so that they don't feel alone. And yeah. And thank you.